Hey, we are two Star Wars nerds, and today we are asking the question, is Empire Strikes Back the best sequel of all time? I personally think yes. This is my favorite Star Wars movie. It's not your favorite Star Wars movie. For context, what is your favorite Star Wars movie?
Return of the Jedi.
Awesome. And, when we're talking about this very question, you hear a lot of people say Empire Strikes Back is their favorite Star Wars movie. You hear that quite often. But in particular, we're not really looking at favorites here. We're looking at subjectively
the story and progression of the story.
Following A New Hope, following Star Wars, is this the best sequel of all time? And we're just going to go through some different reasons that we think that it is. So first, there's a lot of cliffhangers in this. So where A New Hope was a story that was all-inclusive, it left a lot open, but
it felt satisfied.
Yes.
When it ended, yeah. It's like, it would be great if this could keep going, but if it doesn't, I'm satisfied.
Exactly. It could have been done, and it still would have been one of the best movies of all time. But in this, there's like little things like where Yoda says there is another. Referencing Luke being their only hope. And it's like, wait, what does that mean? It's like, I thought this whole thing was about Luke, and now you're saying there's another. You even get to see the Emperor for the first time. Another
major cliffhanger is them going to get Han.
Yeah. It's like, what happens to him?
They kind of have to separate, and they say they're going to reconvene and rendezvous and get back together, but it leaves off with them separating, so then our family's not all together.
And you even have Luke's hand gets cut off and his lightsaber's gone. And it really kind of what it does is there's a much darker theme where New Hope is very triumphant.
Right. Same with Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, this is why I think this is such an amazing sequel, is that it goes a different direction than you expect. And I think largely part of this is the hero's journey that George Lucas is basing this all off of. This is a major source of adventure. It's a major source of development, and especially Luke's life. And so we're in, even as it's described with Joseph Campbell, it's like basically like you're descending like into the beast almost before like you come back like up into this like resolution and victory. And so that's where you're left.
I can't imagine watching this when it came out and then having to wait 3 years.
Yeah.
Like, I would have like lost it.
The hunger
I would have not
must
have been okay.
So real. Like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait.
I need to know what happened, especially me, because I say it all the time, but I like happy endings, and that's why I love this movie. I respect this movie, but it's not in my top 3 because I like the happy ending movies. And
there isn't one.
No. And so it's just like sad to me, but I will say it has one of the best stories. It has a lot of development, and so I can agree that this is one of the best movies of all time. My opinion is a little bit different, and that's only because I like happy things. But what George Lucas did in this movie with the cliffhangers and that development, it's unlike anything else. And like you said, I can't imagine the hunger of not being able to watch Return of the Jedi right after, not even, it hasn't even come out yet, so you don't even know where the story's going. And that's a good story. I mean, that's what you want. You want people to want more. You want to leave people hungry, and he did that with this movie.
Yeah, and usually in sequels, you see the opposite happen. You see people lose interest,
right?
And you have this small group of people who becomes increasingly more invested, while the majority of people leave. Where I would say that the opposite happened. That
this is one of the most popular movies.
The influence grew.
Yeah.
With Empire Strikes Back, and it was it was willing and bold enough to do something different instead of just copying New Hope and saying, hey, you know what?
This worked before. Let's do it again.
Even though there is a second Death Star, granted, but they weren't like, hey, let's just get a second Death Star.
Right.
Let's do it again, make it bigger and better. It really left you in like shock and defeat. You're like, wait, hold up. I thought this was all about like winning space battles, and now literally every single one of the good guys lost.
Yep.
You know, like even C-3PO. Like C-3PO got messed up.
I know.
You know, but I will say on the way it ends is very interesting. You know, obviously in a New Hope, it doesn't end like this, but you have the scene with Luke looking at the binary sunset on Tatooine, and there's so much depth right there in that singular scene. I think in the same way you have Luke and Leia looking out at the galaxy. I think it's very similar, but to what we see in A New Hope with the binary sunset. But now it's like the fate of the galaxy is before you. So as opposed to like this duality of where are you going to go, Luke? Now it's like the decisions you make are going to impact the galaxy. Like, how are you going to move forward?
Right.
Because the ante has gotten bigger.
Right.
But even apart from that, so there's amazing cliffhangers. It's totally different from A New Hope. There's huge surprises.
Yes.
Huge surprises. Like Yoda.
Yep. You finally get to see the little green guy.
You know, he's... And like when he gets all squinty eyed and like
kooky,
gets like serious, and you're like, oh, that's Yoda, you know. But yeah, he is kooky. That's a great word at the beginning. He's totally testing Luke,
which is so different from like how you leave off.
Oh yeah.
Revenge of the Sith.
Well, because think about this, right?
He's been stuck, isolated on an island, or not an island, but a planet.
Yeah. You know, we asked this question, man, what was it like to watch this in theaters? No context, right? And I'm thinking, okay, so you've seen Obi-Wan Kenobi, you've seen Luke, you've seen Vader, and then you hear Yoda.
Oh, Yoda's coming. Who's this Yoda?
Yoda. Okay. It's really...
He trained Obi.
Exotic name, and then you get Yoda, and he's like freaking out, you know, and he's getting all crazy. But then when you start to see him like actually like moving past that test of patience,
right,
you know, into a deeper level, you're like, dang, this is like
He's
really
the real
cool. And then obviously the biggest surprise, you know, is the protagonist, you know, is the son of the antagonist. Like, are you kidding
Crazy.
me? Like,
I can't imagine seeing that the first time. Oh,
yeah. Like, incredible. And it's forever marked our society even. You know, granted, most people quote it wrong. Instead of Luke, I am your father, it's no, I am your father. But nonetheless, like, that idea has really marked our society. I
mean, my dad still says it, but he always says, I am your father. And he's been saying that to me since I was a little girl.
Yeah, he still says it.
Yep.
But then we also have like Boba and Han Solo. Like that's a whole surprise when you see. I mean, obviously, if you saw it in theaters, you don't see the whole scene with Jabba.
In A New Hope.
Yeah, in A New Hope.
Yeah,
that's specialized. But nonetheless, to see Han being taken off to Jabba, and to see Boba, this mysterious character. There's so much surprise in this movie where it's like they took big risks and were hoping that people liked it and that it paid off and people would come back.
And it did.
Because
it was worth it.
What I feel like with A New Hope is that it's like, hey, you know what? If we stop at A New Hope, we're good. You know, we have stories we want to tell, but people will be satisfied. Empire Strikes Back, people better like this. Because they need to come back for the full picture.
Right.
Lastly, and I would love to hear you talk about this, because this is like especially what you like. The character development we see from A New Hope to the end of Empire Strikes Back in Han Solo and Luke. Like, what do you see with that?
Well, in Han, I think you see a lot in Han. Even right off the bat on Hoth, you kind of see him step up, I guess, because he was trying to leave, and he stays back. He does the right thing. He's not after himself. When he sees his friends are in trouble, he, just like at the end of A New Hope, you kind of started to see that he came back to help his friends. And so you see he's starting to build a family and a community, and he's not only after himself. He's willing to sacrifice himself for his friends, and he's becoming, like, instead of a scoundrel, he's becoming a hero. So I think that's super cool. And obviously with Luke, you're seeing the development of him training hard to become a Jedi on Dagobah. Like, he's going through it, physically, mentally, just all over, facing whatever came his way. And what you do see in it, though, is that then he does leave early, and I think that is part of his development, not necessarily in a good way, but I saw Anakin in that moment, like in Luke when he left, but you're just seeing him develop as a character, not necessarily develop as a Jedi yet. But I think you do see him mature a lot. You see that a lot in Luke. You see him care obviously more and more about his friends and the people around him, and again the sacrifice, just like this group of people is really starting to love each other and care about each other, and you see it in how they protect each other and come back for each other. And you even see that connection between Luke and Leia deepen to where at the end he can communicate. Obviously we know why later. But you see that connection where they can communicate, and they go back and find Luke. So I think I think Luke and Han had the most development. But I think all of them had a lot of development too, like Vader, which we kind of talked about in our last video. But even like Leia has a development. I mean, it's a good movie. Yeah. Every character develops, and that's what you want.
Yeah, and there's real progress being made.
Testing, yeah.
And there is a larger project I, in particular, am wanting to work on with George Lucas and the hero's journey and how all these characters interplay with this. And literally, we are dropped into their stories, and they are continually developing. And that's what's so amazing. And in Empire Strikes Back, we get a lot of change in people, but it's natural and it's organic.
Yes.
And
they work for it.
They do. And I feel like the chess pieces are moving around for a setup and something great. So, with that, there's a lot more we could dive deep on into this. And, if you are interested, let us know in the comments if you would want like a further analysis of why this is the best sequel of all time. Like a video essay style could be something we could work on as well. But, let us know your thoughts and comments in particular about this. Do you think Empire Strikes Back is the best sequel of all time? We'd love to chat with you and, just get to know what you think. So with that, we are two Star Wars nerds. May the Force be with you always.